Hello, welcome to Robert's Place blog. Basically, we're going to be sitting here talking about what Robert's Place is, who's running Robert's Place, and getting to know them a little better. My name's Sess Stotler. I am one of the board directors' daughters. This is one of them. Her name's Dottie Alo. Welcome, Dottie.
Okay, thank you.
I have the privilege of interviewing her today. I know some of you saw her at my father's story about my brother Robert, and it was a bit emotional and sensitive for them, which suicide often is. It's a topic that not everybody wants to talk about, but it needs to be talked about. And so I wanted to jump in and help out to get moving on this so that we can start opening our doors to any and all who are looking for help. We hope that as you go through these videos that you feel more comfortable with each of our staff members, as well as the topic suicide. It's not going to be easy to tackle, but we're willing to take it down one step at a time. And I hope you're willing to join us on this journey. It's a great privilege. My mom usually does the interviews, so bear with me, I'm new at this. But she's a trooper, and she really is just a mother wanting to get her story out there, and also a community member that's wanting to help many of those who are willing to reach out and take the help. So, quick introduction. This is Dottie Alo. She's going to give us a quick introduction of who she is, real simple, and then we're going to dive in on my brother's story.
Sure. First, this is a pleasure for me to be able to work with my daughter. She is one of 5 children, number 4. And whenever I think about who I am and what I like to share, it's really that I just enjoy being a mother, first and foremost, having a wonderful family, children of 5, and wonderful families. Children have married into our home, and now we have 13 grandchildren. I have been involved in the world of education for many years, had an opportunity to get an education, and because of my education have been privileged to have experiences in working with many Pacific Islanders and loving so many people. And now I've retired, and I get to have a blast in my life, and that's to help people really understand our purpose here with Robert's Place, and to be able to tell our story in a variety of different ways, and in ways that will help bless the lives of others.
Thanks. So, let's just dive into it. I really want to know what happened that day. We're talking about February 28th, 2019, the day that my brother died from suicide. Unfortunately, I was in Missouri. I was living in Independence, Missouri at the time with my family, my husband and my son. And I was not here. I wasn't living here at the time. So I didn't have the experience you did. And you and Dad were the first ones on the scene. And I really have been wondering what that day was like for you.
Wow. That's a punch in the gut. Well, let's see. I won't talk about all of the precursors that led up to it, but that actual day. Thursday night, we said goodbye to Robert on Wednesday. It was on at 6:30 in the evening of Wednesday. And it was a great day. We said goodbye. We were happy. We hugged, and we just exchanged really good thoughts, and Robert went his way and we went the other. Wednesday, we thought nothing seemed to be out of the ordinary. We just went about our typical day, we being my husband and I. Come Wednesday night, however, we started getting phone calls. Have you seen Robert? No, I'm sure he's just with his lady. Come Thursday morning, we began to wonder what was happening. We thought, well, maybe he just spent the night somewhere else and he'll let us know. Because Robert's habit is he always tells us where he's going. About 9 o'clock after we came home from working out, Pulley and I began to get the sense of urgency that something was wrong. We didn't know what to think. We had checked with all of his friends. We had done all that we could, what we typically do, because we know that we can find our son. He's predictable. Our son is very predictable. But that Thursday night, pretty close to 11, we pulled up, and my husband and I, we just both looked at each other. We saw that the car was there, and the car was running. And it was really interesting that the car was running, because my son doesn't leave the car running, not for any reason whatsoever. But because it was running, we got out of the car, we looked at it, nobody was in there. We immediately got moved quickly. We didn't even think about going into the house. We saw the garage door, and both of us almost instantaneously opened the garage door. Pule was first, myself second. We walked in, and all I could hear was my husband saying, "Oh no, Robert, oh no." And as soon as he saw it, he did that. He ran in, and my son was on this very short ladder. It didn't look like what you typically see on TV. It was almost as if he was slumped on the top of the ladder. And Pule was in front of him. He saw his face. I wasn't in front of him. I stood behind him. I saw his body slump. And all I could say was, oh my gosh, we were in shock. We didn't know what to do. I was shaking so bad. And Pule just said, what do we do? And we got to get him down. And I told Pule, I said, I don't know if we can get him down. I don't know if we're supposed to, what are we supposed to do? What if the police asked us questions and we took him down and we were supposed to leave him where he was? We just didn't know what to do. And we were just standing in awe, and our hands were just shaking. And in just minutes, we were saying, give me the phone. I need to call 911. Honey, we got to take him down. I says, I don't know what to do, Pule, don't. Let me try to get some direction. So I called 911, and I was shaking. By that time, I had moved back closer to the door, because where he was is right where the electrical part was of our door opener. And Pule was just standing there, and he was just crushed. He was just staring at his son and just saying all of these things like, Robert, why? What's going on? Why did you do this? And in the meantime, I'm saying, help me. I need someone to come. My son, he hung himself, and we don't know what to do. And they say, ask me the questions. Where are you at? I answered them. I said, tell me what to do. And she said, have you taken your son down? I said, what? We can take him down? We can take him down? And I said, Pule, we can take him down. We immediately ran into the house, went to the kitchen. We both dove and looked for a knife. We tried to find a knife that was big enough, and all we can think of was this big butcher knife. And so we hurried up and ran back outside. And then Pule, he just in one quick swoop, he just hit the cable, because it was the cable. We just knew it was big and black, and it was just a cable, and he whacked it. And as soon as he whacked it, my son floated. He didn't even fall hard. And my son's a big boy, but for Pule and I, he floated in our arms, and we were able to just get him down. But on his getting down, his foot got caught on the ladder, and we had to take his foot off of the ladder and get him down on the ground. And then as soon as we laid him down on the ground, we just both loved our son. Pule cradled his head, and would put my arm over his chest, and we just both sobbed. There wasn't anything else that we could do. All we knew is that we just had to be patient and wait there. But just in a few moments, the response time was incredible. Because that happened so quickly, and they came in. But before they came in, I remember telling them, please, I want no sirens. I want no lights. I want no attention brought to our grief. This has to be private for my family. And so they did follow through with that. But I have to back up, because before I even had a chance to really say very much, and we were able to cut him down. I had a chance somehow. I don't even know how that timing happened, but I was able to call my son Michael. Michael was the only one that was nearby. He lived in Midvale. And I just said, Michael, you have to come. You have to come right now. Something bad has happened. You have to come. And he says, Mom, you have to tell me what's happening. What's going on? You could feel his intense concern. And I said, your brother's dead, son. Your brother's dead. You gotta come. And so I told him what had happened. So I knew that he was on his way. He says, Mom, I'll hurry as fast as I can. And you could tell that he didn't know what to say or what to do, and he was in shock. In the meantime, after that traumatic time had happened, and both my husband and I, we looked at our boy, and we waited till the police officers came. And they came, and they were so kind. And they said, you have to leave now. We didn't want to leave our son. This is our boy. We didn't want to leave him. And they said, we don't want you to remember your son like this. We want you to restore your thoughts to how you knew him before. You need to go in the house and wait. So we just quickly gave our son a kiss. We hugged him one more time, and we walked out of the garage. When we walked back up the stairs, Pule said to me, honey, we gotta say a prayer. So we went into our living room, and in our living room, we have a picture of the Savior that hangs over our fireplace. And our house was flooded with lights. Nobody else was in the house at all. Nobody lived there at the time. It was just my husband and I, and formerly Robert. But as we knelt on our knees, there was the sense that that was the only thing that we could do, was turn to our Father in heaven. And he offered a prayer. And he asked Father in heaven to please bless us with peace and an understanding. And the only thing that I could tell you about that prayer is I don't remember all of the words. But I do remember this incredible peace that fell over my husband and I. That peace that just felt like a blanket, and it just covered us. And as we hugged each other after we said our prayer, we knew that this was the one nightmare that we never wanted, but it was one that we would need to work with. But we knew we weren't alone. We knew that the Lord was there, and we knew He understood. And in that understanding, we were able to be calmer. We didn't have all these dramatic cries. In fact, the harshest moment was the initial shock of seeing Robert. But we stayed in the house. And then we also saw that the medical examiners people, the coroner people, they came, and they were so quiet. It was just silent. And they came in, and they took care of everything that needed to happen. Then there was the detective that came in. And the detective asked us some questions. We were able to answer the questions. By that time, Michael came with his wife, Dawn, and we all just got on our knees. We said a prayer again of helping us to get through this difficult time. And as we shared again the story of what happened with Robert, interesting things happened, because Michael said, Mama, where's all of his text messages? Where's all of his emails? Where's all of everything? And they were gone. And he says, did you wipe all of this stuff off? And we said, no, we didn't. But as we thought about this, we thought, oh my goodness, we have to notify our entire family. And by this time, the coroner had taken Robert away, or was getting ready to take Robert away. They knocked on the door and says, we're ready to go. And Michael wanted to see my son Robert, and he says, no, not now. Wait until you have a chance for him to get cleaned up and everything. And it was so interesting, because he wore his best boots, he wore his favorite clothes, he wore his favorite hat at the time, because it was laying on the ground. And it was so peaceful when they carefully took him out of the garage. He was covered up, of course, and we just stood there at the top of our porch with the light lit. that even to today I still remember the color of the light, the shading of the night, the reflections of the light, and those were the things that was the hardest for me to work through of that particular night. But Robert was carefully taken away at that time. About 3 o'clock in the morning, I didn't want my mom to hear about this in any other way but through us. And we tried to find her, but we didn't know she was in the house. I assumed that she had spent the night at one of her son's homes. But by that time, she lived 45 minutes away, and we were traveling, trying to reach all of our siblings. But we knew when we were in one of the driveways of one of my brothers up in South Ogden, I told my brother, I told my husband, we have to notify my other siblings. We have to notify them by phone, because I don't want anyone to find out about this unless it came from us. So we were able to get a hold of my brother, who lived in American Fork, Lloyd. And as soon as we told him on the phone, my heart just broke. Because he said, what? He had the phone in his hand, and we had him on FaceTime. And he was working out, and he was in the neighborhood of all places. And he just dropped the phone, and you could hear him sobbing on the other line, knowing that this broke my brother's heart. And as I thought about it, I thought, oh my gosh, the incredible love my brother has for my son. And as we passed on the message to each one of our siblings, the same reaction. And we knew that this was the heartbreaker for all of us. But we still hadn't told our mom. But we were able to finally talk to her, and her heart was broken. And then we moved into the next stage, where we had to make sure that we could keep this as quiet as we can, but at the same time make it so that we can deliver this news in a way that somehow made sense. So I asked my son Michael, would he please put together a Facebook announcement so that we could be the first one out there to share this message. Because we had seen in the past how some people had shared such traumatic news, and it didn't come from the family, and the family members who were extended family members were just so upset because they didn't get to hear from the family. We had to take care of that because we needed to take care of our family. But in the meantime, we especially had to make sure our children knew everything. They were our first call before we even went to go see our parents. And it was a tough call for us to make for our children. And I was so impressed with the response of my children. First of all, of course, how much they felt about this whole situation and the pain that they felt, but how quickly they responded to the call and said, we will be there by tomorrow morning. My children lived in different states, in Louisiana and in Missouri. I had another son that was in another part of the city that was unable to be reached at the time. But within a matter of hours, our entire family surrounded us so that we could feel their love and prepare for the next step. And that was to prepare for his final burial. That night was hard for us. We remember the sight, the smell, the look, the feeling, the pain, the anguish. I remember so much. And now this is the first time that I've ever shared this in public, and I'm surprised that Sess asked. But how do you begin to talk about healing and begin to talk about suicide prevention if you don't actually address what happened? In many of those things that would happen was hard for us to talk about because we couldn't put it into words in a way that was fluid without a ton of tears. Now I have tears, but at least I can deliver it so it's comprehensible, and I could put it to rest, and I still feel the pain, but not like I felt the pain over that first year of grieving. And because I understood grieving, my husband and I, we were able to figure it out. But that's what happened on that night in answer to your question.
Well, thank you, Mom, for sharing that. I know it was hard. Um, but I just felt we needed to have an idea um, of what you went through so that we can move forward. Um, from a mother's point of view, it's important that we see it, and so as a younger mother carrying it from you, it's unfathomable. It's unfathomable. I can't even talk right now because I'm so emotional. But I couldn't fathom what you were experiencing, and I would never wish it on anyone. And so my heart goes out to all the mothers who have experienced that. And you know, when I received the phone call at midnight about Robert from Michael, lots of things were going on in my head. Lots of things. I had just broken my leg. A month before that, I was laid up in a cast, and several things were going through my mind. Thoughts of when I last talked to him. Thoughts of what did I miss? Thoughts of how did we not see it? And angry thoughts. I was upset. I was sad. 2 years later, and I still have those sad emotions. The other day, I was just sitting there, and a memory popped up from 2 years ago at his funeral of us singing to him as cousins and siblings, and I broke down and cried at work, you know, and it wasn't anything I could control, but it was something I needed. And you know, and I'm grateful for you and Dad being willing to share your story. I know several families, especially in the Polynesian culture, that want to hide suicide. They want to hide the mental struggles that they're going through. And when this hit our family so close, my oldest brother, I couldn't bear to hide it anymore. It needed to be known. It needed to be shared because it's more common than not. And I'm just grateful for you and Dad and being brave enough and courageous to share from the moment it happened. I know we had several friends come over that week prior to his funeral and expressing their thoughts of gratitude and us being so open about the situation, because suicide's a taboo and it's a hush hush in our Polynesian culture, and it's hard to deal with. So oftentimes when things are hard, we sweep it under the rug. And so for you guys to open the door and shine light on such a dramatic, tragic event, I am just in awe of you and Dad. So let's dial back a little bit. Now we know of the hardest night and tragic night. Let's talk about Rob. Let's talk about him being your firstborn.
It took 27 hours of hard labor before I finally gave birth to Robert. I'm April 21st. I remember his birth distinctly because we were in the labor room, and Pule was telling me to be quiet because he was watching a martial arts show with Tingi Matali'i, and he was getting ready to break these big blocks of ice. And he says, "Honey, be quiet, quiet. I want to watch this," because he's a martial artist himself. And I said, "Oh, for Pete's sakes, wow." But Robert was finally born. It was a tough labor, but when I saw him, I just thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe I had this most incredibly beautiful baby. He was so handsome, so gorgeous. I just wanted to just pinch his cheeks and everything. But he wasn't a crybaby, and he was so easy to speak to, sing to, play with. I had my favorite songs that I would sing to him, and even now I sing those same songs to his namesake, Unga Robert, who's healed me so much. But as I watched my son grow, I remember the first time I put a little red karate uniform, what we call a gi, on him. He was only 3 years old. I wish I had pictures taken in those days, but I wasn't a picture taker, kind of a mom. I just lived the moment, and now I wish I could relive the past, but that's not possible without pictures anymore, other than my memories. But my son had grown up in the world of martial arts. He loved hanging out with his dad. He loved learning about karate. It was like his life. In so many ways, he would say to me, "Mom, martial arts is my identity. It's who I am." And I really believe that. He ate, slept, drank martial arts, and he would help me teach. And he was teaching at age 8 years old because he was so gifted in that ability to teach other kids, and he was good at it. And I thought, wow, this kid could teach me a few things. And as he grew older, he began to make a name for himself nationally when he competed in different tournaments. So we knew he had some great skills. He always, I think the thing I loved about him is he would allow his siblings to punch him. He would sit on the sofa, and his siblings, especially his brothers, they would just punch him and hit him just to see if they could make him mad. But he would just sit there and laugh and giggle at him, push him off like they were little flies. And it was just nice to see him act that way, because I knew that he was just a happy-go-lucky boy. He really was. So my memories of my son are those of good memories, hopeful memories. And I remember one time he loved to read the scriptures. Oh my goodness, he really understood and could read them when he was very young. I raised my children on reading the Book of Mormon and all that kind of stuff as I was a young mom. And one time he got me really upset. And I said, he was about 8 years old, just before he turned 8. And I said, "Son, just because you think that you could stand up in front of a pulpit and tell everybody great gospel principles, you think I'm going to let you off of being grounded? The answer is no." So he didn't take that very nicely, but I saw a little part of him just say, "Oh, Mom, when are you going to just let me be me? Let me explore a little bit." And it was beginning with Robert and then my other children that I began to realize the importance of agency, the importance of allowing them to make some mistakes so that I can guide and nurture them. Over the years, as they began to grow and change, our family life changes were pretty big. And so my family ended up encountering a lot of outside influences that I didn't believe blessed the lives of our children, where they had to work through some of those issues. Yet at the same time, I really 100% believe that they made the best decisions that they could make. And in Robert's case, he never lost that thirst for learning of his. He never lost that desire to become an entrepreneur. In fact, a lot of the things that we're putting in place for Robert's Place, this organization named after him, is so that we could actually bring to life a lot of his ideas. One of them, Positive Passage, a t-shirt that's going to be a design of his own that we're going to carry on. And it's little things like that we wanted to do. The other is being able to hit a punching bag while someone is listening to what's happening and why the crisis and what you're so angry about. We wanted to introduce that into our brick and mortar building so that people can just release. Our people, when we get angry, we hit stuff. Well, I'll say, well, why don't we just go to Robert's Place and punch a bag, hit a bag, and let some steam off, but also get some good direction and good ideas on what directions to go. My son, I loved his personality. So he used to always tell a lot of jokes. And his jokes were very Americanized jokes. They weren't
They were super dry.
They were super dry. I was the only one that laughed at them. I thought they were hilarious.
Some of them were okay.
And now nobody makes me laugh the way he does, because there was a connection that we both had, and we would just giggle and laugh, and everyone else would just look at us like, you are like so dang weird, you know. But those were our moments. And then, you know, he gave me good counsel when I felt that being a mom was tough. Being a mom, you wondered if you had any worth or value at certain points of a mother's life. But then he would say, Mom, if we didn't have your testimony to hang our hats on at different times, how are we going to have hope for the future? And you know, even in his difficult years, he did turn to the Savior on so many levels and so many different occasions. Only the Lord understands why this way. And I'm grateful for that knowledge, because I can move forward with the things that I've learned from this experience, hopefully bless the lives of others who can possibly avoid it. And for those where that is the act that was taken, that we will be able to help them to grieve and to mourn in a way that they can recover, learn, and bless the lives of others.
So let's talk a little bit about the recovery for you and Dad. Kind of walk us down a little bit of what's helped, things that have stood out, or even your mindset of moving that direction.
Wow. That was 2 years in the making. The first thing we did was cry an awful lot. We cried every night, every day, every moment, every minute, every hour. We would cry when we heard his favorite songs. We would cry in the songs we sang together. We would cry in the kitchen because he would cook with us. We would cry when we drive past a restaurant. We cried when we go into the restaurant. We knew what he would order. We could say it by heart. We would cry when we smelled certain things and it reminded us of Robert. We cried an awful lot. And then we talked about Robert. And then we talked about the good things. Then we talked about the what if things. Then we talked about guilt and anger and fear and the thoughts that we were inadequate and what we could have done differently. Oh my goodness, we talked about everything. My husband and I, we counseled each other, because every time we tried to find a place to grieve, there wasn't a place that we could find. And by the time they called us back, it was too late. We'd already figured it out. We had to help our kids figure it out. It was a good thing we had a background in some level of psychology and therapy. But we also especially spent a lot of time developing our love for the Savior, and really to dig deep into, a lot of people call it spirituality. I would like to say that we also turned to our religion, because it was our access to that overall understanding of who God is. And in doing so, we spent a lot of time on our knees. We dove into our scriptures. We drank the words of hope. We drank the words of mercy. We understood that mercy in the eyes of God has to be much greater than ourselves and our comprehension of suicide. Otherwise, we wouldn't feel the hope that we had. We were able to find peace in different ways, going to church, listening to words, listening to conference talks, listening to good music, being willing to just feel the pain of our loss. We were willing to do that, and willing to talk about Robert. We didn't want to put him aside. We didn't want to bury him. We didn't want to hide his name. We had to acknowledge everything about him, because he was a living, breathing human being that will always be with us forever. And in the state of our religion, we also believed that we would see him again. Those were peaceful moments for us to really have that firm belief that this was a temporary separation and he would be ours yet again. And because of that comprehension, we believed then that the Savior knew us, loved us, would help us through this very difficult time. But in return, we felt that we needed to do something about this situation, so that we can help others to find ways to prevent suicide by learning to be healthy, learning to have a better frame of mind, getting support that they needed. And that's what Robert's Place is about, and so much more.
So let's tap in a little bit about the inspiration. What fuels your motivation for Robert's Place? I mean, aside where we started with February 28th to the recovery for you personally, what is that drive?
I never want to see a mother cry like I did, go into the shop like I did, have guilt and regret like I did, um, experience loss the way I did. It's different when you have a loss for a natural death or a death due to illness or an accident death that you had no control over. And in suicide, you often think that there was something you could have done. And that's true. But in the point of crisis, those options are very limited. And I wish that I had known more. One thing that never crossed my mind was that I was supposed to be the rational human being helping my son who was in the midst of crisis. My husband had done so much, worked with him, talked to him, listened to him, go find him wherever he was when his son called out for help, would talk to him all night long and come crawling into bed at 6 o'clock in the morning for an hour nap before he went to work. He did everything that he could think of. We always had some odd barrier. It was we didn't have money, or he didn't have insurance, or we didn't have the right access at the right time, or the timing was such that he wasn't ready or was unable to attend a therapy session because he had to go to work. So it was this cyclical round of constant events that we just kept hitting all of these strange barriers. But when I started looking at suicide hotlines and suicide prevention lines and crisis lines, I thought, oh my goodness, all of this was here. It never dawned on me that I could have picked up the phone when my son says, yes, Mom, I need help, and dialed the doggone number myself. It never dawned on me to do that. Why? I don't know why. But with all of this information, and I always go back to Robert's funeral, how as we were walking out of the building to bury my son that day, today is that day, it's March 9th, 2021, 2 years ago today, different families were coming up to us at my son's funeral, telling us how their loved one or close relative or family member of their own intimate nuclear family had died death by suicide, and they never talked about it. And they were still grieving after 5, 10, 20, 30 years. They were still grieving at almost the same level of anguish that they experienced on the day that that suicide happened. And the burden that they had carried for years. And I thought, families need to live. Families need to grow from this. But too often they said, even at that day, they didn't know what to do. That question bothered me. It bothered my husband. We both knew that we felt that we would need to start a company of some sort that would help people. Never in our dreams did we think it would be centered around suicide, because we would lose a son and have our own testimony, own experience of the difficulty of this particular type of death. So that's what drives me. I want to help make it so individuals and their families can work together to do all that they can of their own choosing to stop this act, and never get so close that it becomes dangerous. But stay on the fringes and recognize those fringes, and stay on the side of healthy and happiness. If we can keep more people there, then the need to handle the crisis is minimized and decreased significantly. That's the goal. That's the goal of Robert's Place.
And I remember a lot of those stories that were coming up. I didn't even know, and I had known these people for years. I grew up with some of them, and it, at the time, because we were burying Rob, I was just like everywhere mentally and emotionally, but my heart still went out to them, and touch. A simple hug brought so much comfort. And I hope that those individuals that shared with us at the time when I hugged them, they knew that I felt what they felt. Human interaction during this pandemic has been so crazy, and avoiding gatherings and avoiding one another um, has been hard, and a sense of withdrawal um, has taken place with a lot of us because human interaction is important. I didn't realize that until I became a mom and my son needed hugs all the time. um, so I do appreciate all those who shared with us their experiences through the last couple of years during that time, that week, preparing for our brother's funeral. It brought such great comfort in knowing that we weren't alone, and also knowing that there's others that felt what we felt. It's comforting to know that there's a sense of support that you find when somebody is willing to share their story and share their grievances with you, because it's not easy to do. But I have found so much strength in those individual stories, and I just thank each of you that were willing to share with me that time, and still today. Um, it did bring much comfort, and you're right, Mom. We do need to do something about it. We do need to address it. We do need to be more bold in our approaches to stop it. Um, I remember the week of when Robert had passed away. I had an urge to call him, and it was that Wednesday that I felt that urge, and I was in my own thing. I had my own funk going on. I was slightly discouraged with my situation of breaking my leg and not being able to go back to work, and I was frustrated with myself, and I was like, I'll just call him later. And I had that urge again, and I just I put it off, and it was too late. It was too late. I got a call that midnight on Thursday saying that he was gone. And they say hindsight's 2020. It is 100% true. Now, could that phone call have saved him? I don't know. May it have just prevented it for just a moment? Possibly. Could it have just encouraged it? The way me and Rob were? Possibly. Because it was an up and down conversation with that guy sometimes. You never knew how he would take it. But now, learning what we've learned, it's important to act on those promptings. It's important to really take in those moments, to hug somebody that needs a hug, to call somebody that you have been thinking about to stop by and visit them. So, since then, what changes have you made to help someone? Or what changes have you made spiritually to be more open to an opportunity to help someone?
I think I've always been really close to the Lord. I've always put a priority on my understanding of Him and learning about Him in the Lord's ways. But I think the difference is paying attention to that feeling, that sense, and for those of us in our religion, that prompting, right? To act on something, to move on something. And I find that I pay attention to those thoughts and I act immediately. Because to me, it's a timing device in so many ways. It's a timing device of, hey, someone needs you right now. And you may not understand why, and maybe it doesn't matter. It's just your opportunity to serve. And as I started doing that more frequently, trying to really pay attention to this sense that someone is in need, I find that the closer I am to my Savior, the more those thoughts come to my mind. The more I think about other people, the better I am in terms of my own personal healing. The more I put myself in other people's position in their pain, the closer I am to experience what it's like to have charity, to have a Christ-like love. And it also puts me in a place where I'm less inclined to throw blame. I'm less inclined to be judgmental about another person's situation that you know nothing about other than what they're going through themselves, because we don't. But my responsibility over these last couple of years is to give hope, to be hope, to be a representative of hope, and to always find something of value within that person and share that value with that individual. And that's been a blessing for me because it's harder for me to get angry. It's harder for me to be negative. It's easier to find more positive things about individuals. It's easy to find a silver lining when it's a dark day. And living in that way has allowed me to have more continuous peace in my personal life. I can be happy despite the challenges and trials that I'm living. I can be happy even about thinking and reflecting upon the loss of Robert, because I look at what he's left. I look at the seeds he has planted and watching them nurture and grow. So there's a lot of good things, and he's not in isolation. Whoever he's been influenced by, whoever his life has been connected, including his own children and families that he had engaged with during his marriage, all of those parts cannot be dismissed. New relationships that he had made during the last 4 years of his life when he joined us are cherished relationships, friends, families, newfound loves. All of that is valuable, even more valuable to me. So I'm more sensitive to that, and I believe that I have personally grown. When I cry because I'm living a particular moment. But when I talk about the maturity and things that I've gathered from that point, I'm now in a perfect position to say I have greater empathy. I can now do more because I have a greater comprehension of my work, of what my work is all about.
Well, thanks, Mom. Well, thank you so much, Mom. I wasn't sure about this interview, but I felt that it was necessary to start off with you. You being his mother, and one that you and Dad are a part of the directors of the board. I think it's essential that people come to know you and Dad and come to know your story on a different level. It's one thing to share your story, but it's important to break it down and to really come to a different level of understanding, because that's what makes us human, relating on different levels with one another. And I know that this won't bring back Rob, even though I wish it would. But the good parts of Robert, which is several things, more than what he left, more than how he left, I should say, are really the things that stand out more now and what continue to live on with each of us. So I pray that these videos, when we start to get to know you and Dad and several of the board members along with our family, that our viewers will come to know us more and will be more open to sharing with us in the future. Thank you so much for sharing with me today, Mom. I know it was hard. It was hard for me. I'm all over the place with my emotions right now. But it's a beautiful healing recovery, and I'm grateful that I was here to be with you.
Thank you, Princess. I appreciate your taking the time. I don't usually talk about the details. In fact, I rarely talk about the details of that particular night. So for me to go down memory lane was very difficult, and yet I can see its value. I just encourage people to please take from this not to act on it in the same manner, but to do everything you can to run away from it. And that's my bottom line message. It's painful, and losing someone compounds that pain, because we can never have you back during this earthly time. Thank you.
Thank you. We're gonna try to do more videos. They won't be as heavy emotionally. We're gonna do a lighter side as well, but just stay tuned and be sure to check us out. Share our story. Continue to follow us. A lot of great things are lined up for Robert's Place, and our communities is our focus. This next generation, all of our Polynesian sweet spirits that are in generations to come, and even this generation, we want to help and we want to continue to lift up each other. So be sure to follow and share so that we can continue to reach out wherever we can. Thank you for tuning in. We'll talk to you later.